Today we're going to talk about one of the most feared forms of spiritual discipline ever, and that is fasting. Now, why is it the most feared? Because no one wants to go without food on purpose. But what is fasting? Let's look at a definition. So, it's a Christian's voluntary abstinence from food for spiritual purposes. So again, everything we do is for the purpose of godliness, for His glory. Now, I don't know if you know this, but fasting is mentioned in the New Testament alone 77 times. Here's what's crazy for us Baptists. That is more times than baptism is mentioned in the New Testament. That's crazy. So if God has repeated Himself in His Word, we should pay attention. Therefore, fasting must be pretty important, or more important than we may make it out to be. Now, there are different kinds of fasts, and we could go into all of those, where you only eat vegetables like David did. There are supernatural fasts, normal fasts, partial fasts, so many different kinds. We're going to talk about what's called a normal fast. And you may have heard people talk about how, I fast from TV, or I fast from my phone, or I fast from whatever that's going to maybe draw away some time. Now, those are good things, right? But according to the Bible, though, the Bible specifically talks about fasting with regards to food. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. And so we are going to just talk about a normal fast. Think of that as like a 24-hour period where we don't have any food. Obviously, you do have water, so that would be a normal fast. Now, another thing that this is expected of Christians. I already mentioned the 77 times part, but in Matthew 6, Jesus says, when you fast. And then later in Matthew 9, He says, then, talking about His disciples, they will fast, right? So this was an expectation while He was gone, as He ascended, as He is at the right hand of the Father right now. His followers are supposed to be and expected to fast. Now, Piper says that fasting is the longing for the hunger of God. Now, why the heck would I fast? Yes, it says it in the Bible, but what's the purpose? Well, let me just share a few purposes. So one, what if we want to seek God's guidance? You don't know what school you're going to go to. You don't know what job you're going to take. You don't know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Well, you can spend that day in fasting to seek God's guidance. What about strengthening your prayer life? As you feel that hunger coming on, and it just promotes you to prayer, and you stop what you're doing and you pray to God, that is going to draw you closer to Him than almost any other spiritual discipline will. What about grief? Maybe you're grieving the loss of a loved one. Maybe you're grieving and repenting over your own sins. Or maybe you're grieving because you have someone you really care about who does not know Christ. And you're going to fast and pray for their salvation or their repentance. To humble ourselves. We all need that. We are prideful beings, even in this renewed state. But we must need humbling every now and then. For ministry, some people use fasting as a way to, rather than going out to lunch for a job and take that 30 minutes to an hour, they instead skip the lunch and go and minister and spend time doing God's work. And honestly express love and worship to God. Now, how often should we fast? See, the Bible doesn't say how often we should fast, and so therefore I think a lot of people just don't do it. But I would suggest at least once a month, maybe the beginning of the month, the end of the month, whatever it is, but do that for the glory of God. And I'm telling you, if you do it for a godly purpose, it will not seem as terrible as what you may think it is. And I think you'll draw closer to God than you ever thought you would through the simple act of obedience.